Among the debates at the Council of Europe during its summer session was a debate about whistleblowers. I asked the rapporteur to define the difference between someone who is betraying his country and someone who is a hero.
Well, a whistleblower is acting in the public interest. He finds a problem within his own organization. That problem could be health related, safety related. It could be that the government itself is not sticking to its own laws. When possible, a whistleblower tries to solve it within its own organization, because that's where usually problems should be solved. And when the public interest is greater than all the other interests there, you should be able to go outside, make public what the problem is, so the public is aware of what often is a danger to health, safety, or great bits of corruption.
Of course, you know why I'm asking, because Mr. Snowden is regarded in the United States of America as a man who is betraying his own country, and he is risking prosecution. How can the Council of Europe have any kind of influence in stopping that way of thinking about whistleblowers?
Well, the interesting thing of Mr. Snowden is that the United States is prosecuting him under the 1917 Espionage Act. So they see it as espionage if you give information that the US government was not sticking to US laws, to US people, which I think is a long way from espionage. The really strange thing in that law is that when you have the balance of whether you should go public or not, under the Espionage Act, you do not have the right of saying this was in the public interest. Now, indirectly, the Americans have already admitted that it was in the public interest because they changed their laws, they changed part of the ways they went about it. So it would be good that if they want to prosecute Mr. Snowden for leaking confidential documents, which you're not allowed to, that he should be able to say, I'm a whistleblower, I did this in the public interest.
Of course, Mr. Snowden's case is indicating something which is of general interest to all the world. But you are in your report mentioning a lot of other areas where whistleblowers are even needed. Could you explain a few of them?
Well, we had a hearing here with people from the financial sector. Someone who blew the whistle on a multi-billion-dollar financing of a drugs cartel in Mexico where people were killed by the hundreds. And everyone was sort of closing their eyes on it. We had a lady from Nestlé. She blew the whistle that, well, there had been about 40 complaints from parents that said, no, we had to take out the new cookies from the newborns because they were choking in it. They had to take it out with their hands. Now, if something like that happened, usually you would take your product off the markets. Well, we have a lot of those examples which show that you need it both in the private sector and in the public sector. And that's what you already said in 2009, little did we know about what was happening in the NSA or in our own secret services, that there should also be whistleblowing procedures for secret services.
You're also in your report referring to a lot of cases at the Court for Human Rights, which is an institution of the Council of Europe. Do you foresee any kind of impact on those judgments? I mean, several of judgments of that court haven't been respected. Do you hope for here to find some laws, some judgment which will be respected?
Well, most Western countries here respect the judgments of the European Court of Human Rights, and the Legal Affairs Committee has a special committee to keep chasing those countries that do not respect the judgments. So in the end, sometimes it takes too long, almost all judgments are respected. So this report is usually read quite well by the European Court of Human Rights, and it sometimes finds some inspiration for a judgment, so that could be useful. And yes, I do expect countries to respect the European Court of Human Rights, because that's what they said when they entered the convention.
Final question, what will come out of your report?
Well, we propose that the countries in the Council of Europe write a framework convention in which they lay down minimum norms for protection of whistleblowers. The last 2009 report made them write a very, very good statement on what those minimum rights should be. So the ministers actually took it up. A number of countries are enacting legislations, and then countries like Serbia have very progressive legislation. So some laws changed as a consequence of what happened here. Now we hope that these countries learn from each other and put on an adequate level of protection for whistleblowers.